what's going on in the world today, then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Southern Sense Talk Radio with your host, Annie, the Radio Chick-A-Dee, and featuring Curtis C.S. Bennett and the most interesting guests that you'll find anywhere on internet radio. So sit back, relax, and remember, Southern Sense is common sense.
And welcome to another adventure here on Southern Sense Live. I'm your hostess with the least mostest, the Radio Chick-A-Dee, Annie, and my co-host, the courageous Curtis C.S. Bennett.
Hey.
How you doing, Curtis?
All right. We survived Helene and Milton with no damage. So that's just my area. But so many others weren't so fortunate, but we'll get through it.
No. And I have to say, I was following this Milton and Helene extremely closely. Well, not only because I was in the path of Helene, but my sister moved to the Tampa area and she was straight in the path, and the eye of the storm just missed her. She was just on the outer bands of it. And I was following it every moment by moment. And folks, this is I'm not sponsored by anyone. This is just me talking. There's a website out there called Ventusky, Ventusky, Ventusky.com. It is an excellent website to follow for storms such like this, to see what's coming in, where the projected path is, and the wind gusts, and so on and so forth. It is really detailed. And I tell you, I was telling her, hey, listen, you're going to get XYZ rain and so forth. I was able to tell her what was going to happen so she could be prepared. And they made the decision to stay, and they weathered it very well. They didn't lose their power. During Helene, we lost our power, but I have the Generac. And someone said, well, you should get Generac to be your sponsor. I keep going. I'll probably have a lot of them then.
It's a possibility.
But for us, it saved us a lot. We did have a lot of debris that cost me a little bit to have cleaned up. But yeah, we were safe. But our second guest today lost his power and has not gotten his power back. So he's unable to join us. But we will have with us Sarah McAbee. She is the wife of Williamson County Sheriff Ronald Colin McAbee, who is one of the J6 political prisoners. His wife will be with us, and what she has done while her husband is incarcerated and going through hell is absolutely stunning. I'm looking forward to speaking with her. She is a dynamo and a force in her own right. So.
Hey, well, maybe we can give her the hour.
Well, that's what I'm hoping. That she will stay with us for the whole show. If not, we've got plenty more to talk about, and our listeners know that that is what's going to happen. We've got election coming up in, what is it now? We've got 26 days?
Well,
25 days.
We start early election on the 21st.
So ours starts early on the 21st, which is coming up just in a week and a half. Yeah, a little over a week. Not this Monday, but the following Monday. And I've been fighting my locally county council over sales tax. So we're going to be at the signing of waving signs and planting signs and waving flags and doing a lot of crazy stuff. But folks, elections start at the local area. So when you do go and vote, whether you go early voting or you wait until November 5th, make sure you go down the ballot to see what your local issues are, your local candidates. Just don't go just for the top, just go down the whole thing, because what happens in your neighborhood goes up to the state and then into the federal. What happens locally affects what happens in the future. So please go out and vote, and bring friends and family to vote with you legally. I gotta say that, legally. All right. With that said, those that listen to our show, and that we start each and every show with a dedication to a fallen hero. And today's dedication is going to go out to County Sheriff. Oops, that's the wrong one. Oh, I have the wrong one. I did not put the correct one on this one. I apologize. In the printout that I have, Chicago police officer Luis Huesca, who was killed in the line of duty. I had to go and off my memory and say yes, remembering who I was dedicating. And this is this dedication to him.
As you can imagine, this is a very active investigation as police seek to identify the person or persons responsible for Officer Huesca's murder. The 6-year veteran of the department was just 2 days shy of his 31st birthday.
This is not a symbol of us versus them. I hate injustices and lawlessness as well. That's why I became a cop.
Shown in this YouTube video posted by the Chicago Police Department last year is Officer Luis Huesca. At the time, he was paying tribute to Officer Andres Vasquez Lasso, shot and killed in the line of duty. Today, the tributes are for him, as Huesca was fatally shot just as he arrived home from work around 3 a.m.
He was just a great officer, a great human being, and his family is dealing with a lot right now.
Police say it was a shot spotter alert from around the corner at 55th and Kedzie in Gage Park that alerted them to the shooting. Superintendent Larry Snelling saying Huesca was still in his CPD uniform when he was killed, though it may have been covered up.
The officer's vehicle was taken, but to get to the total motive of what happened, we need more information.
That vehicle appears to have been located hours later, less than a half-mile away in an alleyway near 56th and Mozart. Officers blanketing that area as well, collecting evidence and interviewing residents.
The vehicle found in the alley here, we believe it was the officers. If this was a carjacking, there might be evidence inside, or an attempted carjacking, who knows. But again, all of that's being collected right now.
The 30-year-old officer was a 6-year veteran of the department, currently assigned to the 5th District's Priority Response Team. Mayor Brandon Johnson releasing a statement today that reads in part, "I met with Officer Huesca's mother and uncle this morning and assured them that they have the full support of my administration as they deal with this unspeakable loss. Our city is grieving, and our condolences go out to their entire family, as well as Luis's fellow officers and community." Police at this point are remaining tight-lipped, not even saying if they believe this was the act of one or multiple shooters.
Watch breaking news on YouTube. Subscribe to ABC7 Chicago Eyewitness News.
Let it be said, when we finish this race, we kept them free, we led with grace. Let it be seen, from sea to shining sea, beautiful America, living our legacy. Oh, Father, mother, sister, brother, oh, we gotta learn to love each other, oh, for the soul of the nation, for the next generation. Let us be known as people of honor, humble and bold, faithful through fire. Let us hold firm to our convictions with wide open hearts, eager to listen. Oh, Father, mother, sister, let it be said, when we finish this race, we kept them free, yeah, we led with grace. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother, oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation, for all the next generation. Let it be said. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother, oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation, for all the next generation.
All right, and we are back. You're watching Southern Sense Live, and I'm your hostess with the least mostest, Annie, the Radio Chick-A-Dee, along with Curtis C.S. Bennett. Curtis, we've been hearing a lot of rhetoric ever since Trump came into the political scene, a fiery rhetoric that often can sound violent. And sometimes things are taken out of context. But then again, there are things that are done that are so blatant, it just has to be brought to the forefront. And I don't know if you heard about this professor from the University of Kansas and saying that those that do not vote for Trump and do not vote for Kamala Harris. He said, line all those guys up and shoot them. Now, this came out, this article just came out, I guess it was just yesterday, from the Topeka Capital Journal. Jason Alatid wrote the article. And there's an instructor at the University of Connecticut that has been placed on leave after a video on X showed him suggesting to his class that men who won't vote for a female president should be shot. And clearly, this is what he wrote, what he said. If you think guys are smarter than girls, you've got some serious problems. The man in the video said, that's what frustrates me. These are going to be some males in our society that will refuse to vote for a potential female president because they don't think females are smart enough to be president. I would say Margaret Thatcher was a weak woman. She was not the president of the United States, but she was over in
plenty
the
examples.
UK.
Indira Gandhi of India.
Yep. Now he goes on to say, we could line up all those guys and shoot them. They clearly don't understand the way the world works. Did I say that? Scratch it from the recording. I don't want the deans hearing I said that. Now, he knew he was being recorded. And that's what really flabbergasted me, knowing the fact that you're going to be recorded and you say it online.
Well,
and then, if someone's going to take it and post it somewhere, you're going to be exposed. What you say, I know anything I say here. Someone's going to try to turn around and say, well, she said that. Wait a minute. I'm careful about what I say.
Well, people are good at trying to, conceal their true feelings, especially when they're operating in the professional world. And, this is where they make their living. But as humans, it's hard to hide your core beliefs. And there are times it'll come out your true, feelings and how you think about certain things. So I'm not surprised that his statement of lining people up and shooting them, that sounds like something you hear from a Marxist. In that world, if you don't agree with the government, you get shot. So I'm not surprised at all.
There are terms and phrases that we use. I just lost part of my headset. It's brand new. um, there are terms and phrases that we use customarily. It's like, oh, shoot. And you say, oh, well, if they're stupid enough to do that, they deserve to get lined up and shot. It's something that's sometimes rhetorical. You don't mean to physically actually do it. It's just a turn of phrase.
But like I said,
it's like
true
placing you in the. It's like if I were to say that I felt X, Y, Z, and if I were to say that in public, I would be placed in the bullseye. People are going to take aim at me, not a physical gun aim, just meaning their response will be aimed at me. So there are turns and phrases we use naturally, but actually to say they should actually be lined up and shot.
Yeah, like I said, he really believes that, even though he may be doing it in jest. And besides, why should I vote just based on a person's sex, male or female or whatever,
exactly.
transgender? I mean, if I would never be, but if I was in the transgender community, you think I'm going to vote for somebody just because they're another transgender? No, it's all about policy for me, at least, and the direction this country's going in, and not only that, how true you remain to the Constitution and the original intent of the founding fathers. That's what drives me, not sex or anything or race like that. Culture. I don't vote that way.
Well, the university did the video was recorded during a class this semester. And they stated, we are aware of the video, which was recorded during a class earlier this semester. This was said by Erin Barcombe Peterson, a Kansas University spokesperson. She further went on, said the instructor is being placed on administrative leave pending further investigation. The instructor offers his sincerest apologies and deeply regrets the situation. To emphasize his advocacy for women's rights and equality. And he recognized he did a very poor job of doing so. The university has established process for situations like this and will follow the process. The professor in the video is Phil Lowcock. That's the name of the professor that is in the video. So
it tells me that he's not too smart.
Also, yeah.
He's not bright at all to make those statements in the climate that we're in today. I mean, people have been brought to explain themselves when they make such statements, and there's plenty of examples out there. And for him to just blatantly come out and say that without, considering the ramifications, he's not that smart. Maybe he needs to be led by a woman.
There's one thing to be for women's advocacy, okay? That means that if I'm going to apply for a job, I know that I'm completely qualified for, and my credentials all verify that I'm probably one of the best candidates, if not the best candidate for that job.
There you go.
And it goes to someone that has no experience, no credentials, and then that's when you advocate for the woman, knowing that she's being not given that position or job because a man applied, even though he doesn't have the credentials and I do. He doesn't have the experience, but I do. That's when you go in for women's advocacy. But you don't turn around and say, well, you have to hire a female simply because she's a female. No, you hire the individual, the person, and you ignore, as you say, the race and any other things about that may be, I don't know, the bigotry.
Yeah, you have to be qualified for the position you're going for. I mean, we don't send dance professors or whatever to do a Navy SEALs job.
No.
Nor do we send Navy SEALs to do a baker's job.
It's called meritocracy, and we've gone away from being meritocracy. The teeth in backwards. I apologize.
Yeah,
we've gone away from meritocracy. And now it's based upon what the flavor of the month is, whatever the newest thing they are getting behind, race, gender, whatever. I mean, you can be someone that worships the moon and the sun, and that's And then you have to now back anyone who says, I worship the moon and the sun. No, you go for the best person for the job. And that's what we have to do when we go out and vote. We go for the best person for the job. And we haven't been doing that. So look what we got, a bunch of bumbling idiots running around and controlling our country.
I'm curious how old this professor is. It seems like a lot of professors are in their 30s, early 30s or whatnot, and they really haven't lived life outside of the university environment, and they don't really know world events, only what they've been taught. So I'm really curious about this person's age. I think an older professor would be a little more wiser and a little more discreet in what he says and express.
Well, I think what it is that the progressive left, I mean, that's sort of like a redundant saying progressive left. It's stupid. I apologize. But the progressives are seeing that they're losing with Kamala Harris. They see they have a very, very weak candidate. And they're seeing certain things in her and her public performance and persona saying, we're losing voters. We are losing people backing her. So they're pulling out the big guns.
Voters.
They are. And they're pulling out the best guns. So obviously this professor thought he can sway people to force them by intimidating them into voting for Kamala Harris. Another perfect example is former President Barack Obama, who has lectured Black men who vote Trump over Harris. Okay, let me get that correctly. Who vote for Trump over Harris. He was messaging people. Where was this? This was quoted in the New York Times, the Philadelphia Inquirer, Siena College, that showed Harris' support among Black voters is lower than what President Joe Biden received when he won Pennsylvania in 2020. So Barack Obama, this past Thursday night at the University of Pittsburgh, he pleaded for Black guys to support Harris. He stated, by the way, I'm sorry, gentlemen. I noticed this, especially with some men who seem to think Trump's behavior of bullying and putting people down is a sign of strength, he said. The Times reported that he said that, and I am here to tell you that that is not what real strength is. It never has been. If you take that, what he's saying there, it basically makes sense. Trump does come across as a bully. I agree that, being a bully doesn't mean that you're strong. It's what your actions are. And we've seen what his actions are. So if you just take that alone, it sounds like a completely great phrase. But he goes further on saying real strength is about working hard and carrying a heavy load without complaining. Real strength is about taking responsibility for your actions and telling the truth even when it's inconvenient. Real strength is about helping people who need it and standing up for those who can't always stand up for themselves. It sounds harmless, doesn't it? And it sounds logical. It sounds as if a conservative is speaking. And then he further goes on and says, that is what we should want for our daughters and our sons. And that is what I want to see in the president of the United States. But then he goes on and says that they have to vote for Kamala Harris.
Well, I'm not surprised.
He goes, why are Black men being belittled in ways that no other voting group is? Former State Senator Nina Turner said on CNN. She said that not a lot for former President Obama, but for him to single out Black men is wrong. And he's right. Here he's lecturing them and making it sound like he's a conservative, basically. And I'm being a strong person. I'm telling you got to be a good, responsible individual person. But you have to vote for Kamala Harris. You have to vote for the woman simply because she's a woman.
Well, people like Obama and those on the left, they're very skilled in making their point. They are masters of the language, the English language, and they know how to present themselves in a conservative way, so they are more acceptable to the masses. And a lot of people are sucked into this, but it's a facade to me. And I think the reason why they aren't connecting like they used to in the past is because people are waking up to the truth about the Democrat Party and what's going on in this world and in this country. I mean, think about it. These folks are paying, for these policies when they look at how much food costs, how much energy costs, what's going on in our schools with this wokeness and LGBT agenda, and they're tired of it, and I don't think sweet words or nothings from the left and their leaders are going to change that or influence this election.
No, I think the public is now, you see a backlash. We see the ratings go on all the major networks, especially after the debate between Tim Walz and J.D. Vance. And that debate alone was enough to start to make some of these networks tank. See, I pulled up a lot of stuff just to make sure. I'm going to lose another earpiece again.
Yeah,
Okay.
I heard about that.
The debate. Now, when they had Pence versus Kamala Harris back in 2020, that had, where's the numbers here? Here we go. That had almost 58 million, 57.92 million people watch that 2020 debate. It dropped over 25% down, 43.15 million. Of course, 15 networks had played it. So the audience was reduced by 1/4%. 25%.
You mean after that
CBS,
debate? After that debate?
CBS, NBC, ABC, they all saw their ratings tank.
Okay, which debate? Pence, Harris, or
No. The
J.D.
debate
Vance
between
Walz?
J.D. Vance.
Yeah.
That the audience was 25% smaller. Now, I didn't watch. I don't think I watched the Pence versus Harris debate because I knew it was going to be Pence was going to do a rope-a-dope on her, which was probably pretty easy. So I apologize. I did not watch it. But
Me neither.
see, but that goes to show how much the left is really interested in who they put forward as president and vice president. They see a weak team, and their ratings are showing it. And you're also seeing some of the people within CBS, even MSNBC, starting to turn around and go, wait a minute. What you're saying there just doesn't make sense. And some of their own people are starting to say, wait, you're twisting the story into something it really isn't. A perfect example is CBS just recently had an interview with Kamala Harris, 20 minutes. Well, they sliced and diced that to make it look really super great. But let's see the whole 20 minutes. Let's see all the word salad. Let's see everything else that everyone else out there wants to see. Give the full interview out there, CBS. Pull the whole thing up and play it.
They won't. Unless they court ordered.
Well, I understand someone did put in, what was that? What do they call it? I forget what they call it now. But someone I don't know if it's the Republican National Committee or not, but someone has put in a legal request for them to release the whole thing. I apologize. I just got a major brain fart in that area. But yeah, there is a request for...
Not really a lawsuit. Release of information type thing.
I forget. I apologize. But I do know that someone already, as of this morning, has put something out there demanding the full release, that CBS plays the full thing, or at least it releases I believe the transcript. They're looking for the full transcript. I've had a couple of people mention to me that they've been watching Kamala Harris on camera and how she performed prior, as she just became vice president, and even earlier just this year, and compared how she's behaving and acting today, even her facial expressions and her looks. And they see a change, a drastic change. And some are questioning whether or not she's got early onset dementia, young dementia. Her word salads. I mean, sometimes I get a little confused with my words. I know that because I had too many strokes. And ever since then, I sometimes have problems with some words. It doesn't mean I have dementia. My acuity is great. My memory is perfect. It's just something happened with the stroke that there's a little part that I kind of trip over words sometimes.
Well,
I'm
she
lucky.
never does go
That's all I
into
got left.
detail. She never
Yeah.
goes into details when they ask her questions or specificity, but
No, she
you
can't
may be
answer a
right.
question straight.
She comes up with the most elementary terms in response to any questions. You know, you would expect that from like a third grader or something.
All right, you just called Kamala Harris the third grader.
Yeah. Well, her responses. Yeah. She's not an intellectual, in other words.
No.
And actually,
not-
the Democrats put the two weakest candidates in the White House when they did what they did. Of course, we know Biden wasn't up for the job. And then she wasn't even, I mean, she was the first one off the candidacy in her run for president. And so nobody really wanted her. And now they're stuck with her because they put her on a ticket with the first loser. So you got the first and second runner-up loser. Now they stuck with her.
Yeah, no, we're waiting for our first guest to call in, and I did send them the information, so hopefully she will call in or pop in very shortly. We're looking for Sarah McAbee to join us in a few moments. I'm just trying to find her email here and see if I can get her agent to give her a little prod. So just bear with me for a minute, folks. Yeah, that's who I got. Okay. Anyway, I apologize, Jay. Doing three things at the same time. I had one screen go blank on me while I'm talking to you.
And I think she's trying to be Hillary too, because when Hillary was running, and I would add Al Gore, when they addressed the black church, members or people in the black community, they would come up with this accent that made them kind of sound like they were, black and down with it and all that. And then they present themselves in a different way in front of corporate leaders and things like that. So it's like I'm hearing now that Camilla, whatever she prefers to go by, she's taken on a Mexican type accent when she talked to Hispanics and to try to identify with them. And that seemed to be the case with those on the left, with one exception, and that's Obama. Obama was Obama all the way through, whoever he talked to. I guess the fact that he was looked upon as the first black president and it was already articulate, he didn't have a need to, try to adopt any particular accent to win over whoever he was speaking before.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
So in other words, a lot of these people aren't authentic. And I think she's far from being authentic. Matter of fact, she's found ways to find favor in others to rise among the ranks in politics. It's not anything she really done, but who she knew and who she associated with her, romantically. Allegedly, this mayor on the West Coast that she was involved with, and that advanced her her career somewhat. I understand that she didn't pass the bar the first time, and just barely made it the second time. So her accomplishments aren't really anything to get excited about, because she's never ran a business. From what I understand, she's never prosecuted a case. So, other than just being another, what some would call a pretty face, she probably, just ascended because of her associations and who she pretended to be.
Yeah, it is a shame that she lets I'm trying to think of saying
She
how
has
to do this.
no real accomplishments to boast. not even as vice president for 4 years. What has she to boast about? What has she done? I ask this of those who want to vote for her all the time. Name me something she's done.
Yeah.
They always talk
she
about
hasn't.
what she claims she wants to do, but she's been vice president. She should have been an influencer in that position when it came to the president. What has she done? Nothing.
Nothing.
But they're going to vote for her because she's perceived to be a black woman, even though she never identified as being black until, she got the VP nod. She was always Indian, but
yeah,
I don't know.
It's I apologize. I was trying to email and text her agent to make sure that she has the correct sign in. So I apologize, folks. Hey, things happen. Things happen. You never know what's going on.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is what the Democrats have put forward, and it's a candidate that never won any votes. No one just self-nominated by Joe Biden. And just the whole party has just simply accepted it. No convention, no vote. That's it. And now that's what you got, folks. We're about 25 or so days away from the actual election. And again, I'm urging people, if you got early voting going on, please go out and take advantage of early voting, because there are rumors that something's going to happen on November 5th. There's going to be, I don't know what it is, but we already know that they had arrested, an Afghan for attempting to foil the elections on November 5th. So we've already arrested one terrorist.
And this is a terrorist that's linked to the CIA. Isn't that something? This guy is linked to the CIA.
Oh, all right. Oh, okay. I've got my people reversed. I thought she was going to be at 3:00. She's at 3:30. Okay, I cannot be perfect, folks. I can go backwards at times. And thank you, Matt Clark. Yes, we were trying to think of Kamala Harris's boyfriend, the mayor of Los Angeles, Willie Brown. No, was it Los Angeles, San Francisco? Matt, was it Los Angeles, San Francisco? I forget now.
I think it was Los Angeles.
Yeah. And Jim Jones was also, and the People's Temple also gave her a hand.
Really?
There's also a clip that I just saw today on Newsmax, that she was addressing a group, and it looked great. It looked nice and crowded. She was going on, sounding eloquent. And when they brought the camera around behind her, you could see the teleprompter directly in front of her as she's reading from it. And all of a sudden, when the camera hit it, someone realized, and the teleprompter went blank. I'm sorry. You do that to Trump, he'll keep going. He's like the ever-ready speech bunny.
Like I said, a script. Everything about them is script. There's nothing authentic about her or Joe.
Yeah, nothing at all. Nothing at all. The reason why I'm saying that, folks, if you can, please just go and vote early. There are activities that they had in Aurora, Colorado. Those Venezuelan gangs. I don't know how to pronounce the name of the actual gang, trans something or other. But they have video of them just yesterday with machine guns or rifles or whatever they were carrying. I don't know what the hell it is. I'm sorry, I'm not a firearms expert, but also the video is kind of hazy. They look like machine guns to me. And someone who's also had a handgun, just boldly walking through the apartment complex. And they're saying that these gangs, not only have they taken over the apartments, but they are all having now the occupants pay them the rent. So it no longer goes to the landlord, the building management, or anything like that. It goes to the gang. So
you're saying this is still going on even after this was exposed like a month or two ago, and the police there haven't gotten a handle on it, or the FBI or whoever, Department of Law Enforcement for that state?
No.
As they say in Italian, that's infamia.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. It was LA. I apologize. Brain farts. Blame it on brain farts.
Yeah, it was LA.
Yeah. But these gangs are really bold, and we know the border is open. They're coming, of course. MS-13 has already been here, like what, 20 years already
Try 25.
or more, or more.
MS-13.
They've taken over areas of Long Island, New York, areas that I used to walk, where I went to school, where I played,
Yeah.
right on the street where I lived. MS-13 is there now.
I was
So
going to
why?
say,
And they
I first
can't
heard
control
about
it
them.
there.
I first heard about them when they were in Jersey, I believe, and they killed some kids from the high school. That's the first time, I've heard of MS-13.
Yeah, there was also was it Copac? It was out on Long Island also. 2 young girls brutally raped and then murdered by MS-13. And there was instances that we heard about in New York where simply if you just didn't like the gang and you said something bad about them, you're a target. And this is how these violent gangs work. You must submit to them or you die. And this are the illegal immigrants that they're allowing to come across. And originally when Trump said, you're sending us criminals, he was correct. Because they are coming over. Is it Wisconsin I saw that they allowed, I believe, 300,000 illegals to register to vote? And we're seeing that there's a fight in Arizona, whether or not to be able to take, I think it's something like 80,000, investigate, because their ID they presented was ID from before 1996 driver's licenses. I'm sorry, that's not a valid ID, 1996. And they registered to vote and they don't have valid identification on them. How do we prove that they are an actual U.S. citizen, or if this is an illegal alien using stolen IDs that they got and they kept from 1996?
Yeah, I think that should be the number one identifier of whether or not we are natural born citizens, or we come here and become legal citizen, and that is a birth certificate, not a driver's license. Anybody can get a driver's license. They don't tell you anything.
Some states are now, and I think my state is trying to move towards it also, that there will be an indication on your driver's license whether or not you are a legal alien or a U.S. citizen.
That's good.
Yeah.
Natural born, yeah.
So that is important. I mean, the Constitution is for we the people, meaning we the citizens, we the legal born here residents. It's not for anyone else just to come across the border and to influence what our government and our politics are, which is what it is. It's interference. I mean, if you're not here legally residing, you don't have a voice. Your voice belongs in the country that you came from. I mean, who's to say that they may flood the border just prior to an election, get these people to vote and let them take them back home? Who's to say they wouldn't do that also?
True.
Just to influence our election.
And the Constitution even bears out requirements just to become a United States president. And part of it is based on citizenship, being born here. So, it's not like this just came out of nowhere. It was there at the beginning, the formation of this country under the United States Constitution.
It is.
And it may have been in the Articles of Confederation, I'm not sure. But I know definitely the replacement, the United States Constitution.
I'm glad I had pulled out some articles. I always do this when there's always the possibility of losing a guest last second. And I was just told, like, dummy me, that the guests were swapped. I forgot that they had swapped their slots. And Sue Elkin, our sweet Sue, saying that Obama wasn't a citizen. And there always is questions about his birth certificate. Because one of the very, very early shows I did, and one of the things my late husband and I did, we had a printing business. And one of the things we used were those very programs, Photoshop and everything else, Illustrator, to do our graphics. And I was able to take his birth certificate as it was printed and then manipulate it. Well, if this was the actual birth certificate, you couldn't do it. The fonts that were on there were not fonts that were in use or even invented when he was born. So
That's true.
there's always that question of the birth certificate.
And then there was something about the birth certificate that came out of Hawaii. It was a shorter form or something, not the long form version.
Correct. And there were certain things on there, on that birth certificate, that would not have been on there at the time he was born.
The signature was kind of suspect of whoever authorized it, the doctor or whatever. Not only that, supposedly it's a well-known fact that he has dual citizenship, and that you can't be the president of the United States if you have dual citizenship. And he has citizenship in Great Britain.
Which is very interesting.
And his brother even attests to that,
yes,
where he was born and all that.
Exactly. So, where are people that delve into this, and where is our government in protecting our Constitution? Well, they're violating their oath if they do not protect the Constitution, the people of the United States, as the Constitution states.
The reason why Obama got a pass was because a lot of people on our side didn't have the backbones to stand up to him because of his skin color, and they didn't want to be called racist. So they didn't look into it, even though there was, obvious questions about his citizenship. They didn't want to be called racist.
Exactly. Well, anyway, I'm going to switch over to a little bit of a different story. And this also could influence what's going on here, because we know with the open borders, we already know those that are on the terrorist watch list already are here. We also know that a large number of Chinese of military age men also have crossed over the border illegally, which makes a lot of things rather interesting. Why I'm always stressing the fact, please get out there. And if there's early voting, please early vote. This is an article from Newsmax. And they're saying that for years, Iran has been using local militia to strike at its enemies, but now they're changing tactics. And they're working as middlemen to find people to carry out their attacks for them, not just Hezbollah and Hamas, but they're also reaching out beyond their own borders into different countries to find anyone that would be sympathetic that they can turn, or gangs that are willing to do their bidding for them, whether or not for money or for free. And some of these street gangs, they're finding that if they get the younger members and they get them to do what they want for free, they're getting these young kids are now getting their street creds. If they go out and say, well, we need so-and-so killed, these young street gang kids said, well, I need some cred. I need something. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to do this for Iran. But it's not just Iran they're looking at. They're also looking at Russia. Now, the Danish police had arrested 2 Swedish teens, ages 16 and 19, charging them with terrorism in connection with the Stockholm embassy explosion. According to the Swedish media, the men were affiliated with a gang leader who has been accused of ordering attacks on Scandinavian region on Tehran's behalf. He is reportedly hiding in the Iranian capital from arrest warrants issued under his name. So they're reaching out into other countries to perform these attacks. What is to say they're not reaching out here if they haven't done so already?
I call it franchising terrorism.
Exactly. And now with social media and these gamers, it's easier and easier to contact people of like mind. And if you got someone that you can convert, you can convince them that, hey, this is the way to go. America is bad and you must destroy it. And this is what we have allowed into our borders. But this is happening in Europe already, in Britain, in Holland. You're finding it in Sweden. So what is to say it would not happen within our own borders? Oh, I'm sorry. Have I forgotten about the marathon bomber, the Boston bomber?
Yeah, I believe a lot of that has already happened, as you just mentioned, the Boston bombings. These countries that sponsor terrorism, like Iran, they're using military tactics. And one of the tactics is what we call psychological warfare. And there's a lot of that going on in the political arena aimed at Trump, just by calling him a dictator, a tyrant, the end of our freedoms if he's elected again, even though, I mean, the man was president for 4 years and who lost their freedom. But that doesn't matter to the idiots out there that believe this stuff, because to those people that's hearing all this bad stuff about Trump, and they have already mental issues or whatever, or they belong to hate groups or whatnot. These are the people that are taking the pot shots at Trump, trying to kill him, I believe, because they're hearing all of this. This guy's the devil. He's Hitler. He's a dictator.
Well, Sue asked a very interesting question in the chat room, that if there wasn't a terrorist attack on election day, wouldn't they postpone the election to a later date so people can vote? And that's going to be a state-by-state decision. I don't know if the federal government would do that. I have no idea what the answer to that would be, which is why I'm telling people go out and vote early. One of the things that the Democrats have always been very good at is getting people out for early voting, ever since that started. And I'll tell you, when it did start, my late husband and I went for early voting because we were both disabled. And when we got there, they handed us the form, because here in South Carolina, you had to have a reason. If you were disabled, or if you're not going to be in town to vote because your work, or you're going to be out on vacation, whatever, you were allowed to go and early vote. But you had to have a specific reason. And we walked in there, and it was checked off for us before we even picked up the form. And I pointed it out to the election commission. He says, I mean, what are you doing here? But now they changed the law that anyone at a certain day can start to early vote. And the Democrats have used that, and they've gotten people out to vote early. We, as conservatives and Republicans, it's just in our nature to say, oh, well, election day, I know I've got time to do it on election day. No big deal. I'm busy with this. I'm doing that. I'm just going to go on election day. But they're finding that 25% of the people that say that they're going to do that don't. Something happens. Something stops them from doing it. They forget, whatever. But 25% of the people that say, I promise I'll go out on the 5th and I will vote. That's the day I'll vote. I don't want to early vote. They don't end up showing up. We lose 25% of our votes. That's why folks vote early.
In my county, I talked to the supervisor of elections a couple of weeks ago, and he said that in our county, requests for early ballots are way down on the Democrat side compared to 2020. And that's because they, first of all, cleaned up the rolls, and voter integrity laws have now made it kind of harder for them to cheat. And and in Florida overall, we have substantially a larger number of registered Republicans than we do Democrats, at least in Florida. And I mean, almost like almost 1.5 margin over the Democrats.
Yeah, it was the first time that Florida now has officially more Republicans registered than Democrats. And I forget what the number was, but it was an extremely large number. I would say 1 million, but I may be right or wrong. I also know nationwide, more independent voters are saying they're leaning towards Republican voting than they are for Democrat voting. We're also finding a larger number nationwide of Republicans are registered. My friend, she's the GOP chair in El Paso County, Colorado. And that is that county that the Democrats tried to toss Trump off the ballot. It is the largest county in Colorado, and she's the GOP chair there. And she said it was the first time she saw her county have more Republicans registered than Democrats. And everyone's saying, "Oh, this is another caution, guys out there." I'm sorry, Curtis, but I think this is important. People are saying, "Oh, well, I'm hearing it's going to be a landslide, so you really don't need my vote." Yes, we do. It cannot be a landslide unless you vote.
And to that, the latest I've heard is that now Trump is leading in all the swing states.
Yes. Yeah. He's finally leading in Pennsylvania, one of the important ones. And there is a town in Pennsylvania. I don't know if anyone remembers this, but historically, whatever this town voted, it always ended up being the president of the United States. And the only time that did not happen was in 2020. Now, they voted for Trump, but Biden got it. It's the first time in history that town did not have the vote for the elected president. Makes you wonder whether or not there was vote tampering in 2020. Maybe there's a lot of truth to that, folks, because we're finding court case after court case, people being arrested. Georgia's had some major investigations, and, well, it can't overturn the heat and that backwards again. It can't overturn the results. It can't change history. It can't put Trump in office now.
Well, to me, it's evident. If you look back on that night in 2020, Trump was leading, by a large margin. And then around 9 o'clock in the evening, they start shutting down, the Democrats start shutting down the information coming out of their precincts and whatnot. And some people were told to go home. And then the Democrats, some of them came back, and they shaded up the windows so nobody could see what was in there. They pulled out boxes from under the tables, supposedly that had ballots in it. And then all of a sudden, around 2 a.m, Biden's leading now.
There's a lot of questions. Sense. A lot of questions, and history in time will tell what the truth is, we hope. But it will be an election with complete controversy. And we should have our guest, popping in the next minute or so.
Yeah. Well, what's his name? Dinesh D'Souza. He's put out quite a few documentaries showing that there was outright fraud being committed. People stuffing stuff in the boxes outside of the election offices.
They had them on camera.
Right.
And that was a great film that Dinesh D'Souza had. And Catherine Engelbright was the other person that worked with him on that one. Get Out the Vote. Or no, True the Vote. Catherine, and I have not talked to her in a while. I really should, hook up with her again. Yeah. Invite her back on. But Dinesh D'Souza now has his own podcast too. And I'm hoping to get him back onto the show too. I haven't had him on in a few years. It'd be great to have him. And, there's a lot of things that will come out in history. What we do need is a responsible administration that will start to open up all of the dark secrets that are hiding here. The January 6th, I'm losing these earpieces. They're just not sticking in.
And I think that will happen if Trump gets in. I think he wants to expose everything now while he has a chance, because of what he went through ever since he came down the escalators. It's been, all out war against Trump by the left. And I really want to see their faces again, like I saw it the first time he won. They were almost like in tears. They were like shocked.
Screaming, no. I want to repeat. Yes, repeat. I
want to see that. But now they prepared to say that, Trump and the right cheated. They rigged the election. That's what they're going to say because they know they may lose.
Yeah. Well, again, the question is what would happen if there was some sort of a terrorist attack on election day? Will there be a return? So that is a question that needs to be answered at another time. But with that, we have our guest on. She's a fantastic lady. She has her own podcast as well as doing great work all across the board. Bring her on, our friend, our soon-to-be friend, Sarah McAbee. Good afternoon, Sarah. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Hello.
Oh, I
Sarah.
was gonna run a banner underneath you. I'm glad you have that there. All right, let me pull my notes. I have to apologize. I kind of got things backwards. Chris Burgard was supposed to be with us, but I mixed him up. I had him coming in later and you coming in first. So I got myself a little bass awkward here. But you are the wife of a fantastic guy. He was a Williamson County Sheriff, Ronald Colton McAbee, and he was at the Capitol on January 6th, and he was there helping people. And the next thing he knows, he's being accused of being a terrorist to the United States, and he's sitting behind bars doing 70 months. I call him a political prisoner. So I want the story to come out of your mouth. I'm giving a little, but go ahead, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me on and giving me an opportunity to share our story because it's so important. You know, it's not just about us. And as your listeners will hear with Chris, he has been a wonderful advocate for January 6 defendants and getting their stories out because unfortunately, over 1,500 Americans have been affected by the weaponization of the Department of Justice. The majority of Americans don't know that it's the largest manhunt in FBI history, and it's the largest prosecution in the Department of Justice's history. For what? What unfolded on January 6th? What January 6th showed is that our nation's capital is protected by an untrained police force. Because what they had in the Summer of Love, what they had for the inauguration of President Trump in 2017, very similar things had gone on. Police were assaulted those days. Protesters were, also assaulted. Bad things unfolded. But they have taken January 6th. The media has taken it. And still to this day, 3.5 years later, have pushed a false narrative. And American citizens deserve answers into what happened that day. Our story, my husband was a 7-year law enforcement veteran. And he did what he was trained to do that day. And he was never went inside the Capitol. He was at the lower West Terrace Tunnel. Unfortunately, waves of violence had started to unfold, and he was standing off to the right side. He saw a Metropolitan Police officer that was drug into the crowd. He couldn't get to that officer, but there was another officer, Andrew Waite, who was lying on the ground on his back, defenseless, and the police weren't helping him. And so he jumped in and put his foot in between the officer's legs so the protesters couldn't pull him down the stairs. And as he's actively helping this police officer, grabbing his vest to pick him up, 2 different officers, Metropolitan Police Officer Devontae Powell and another Metropolitan Police Officer, Carter Moore, came up and assaulted him with batons. Carter Moore across the shoulder and the ribs, and Devontae Powell busted his head open with the baton. And he merely just popped back up and told them, "I'm one of you. I'm trying to give help. I know how to do that. Let me do that." And as he's communicating with these officers, off to the left-hand side of him, Roseanne Boylan is being beaten to death by Officer Lila Morris. So he's trying to get to her. He's pointing at her and yelling, "Stop killing that girl." The protesters had successfully pulled Andrew Waite's legs, and they slid down the stairs together. And as he's over top of Andrew Waite on the stairs, the officer says, "Get off of me." And he said, "I'm helping you." And Andrew Waite says, I know, help me up." So Colton rolls him to the side, gets him back up the stairs, walks him back up to the line of duty, goes to find Roseanne Boylan as Good Samaritans had moved her body away as she was being beaten. She's getting chest compressions. He starts to feel for a pulse. Him and 4 other Good Samaritans pick her up, move her back to the line of duty to get medical attention. He starts to give her chest compressions, and she's drug away like she's a dead animal. And then he's standing there in such disbelief of what he had just witnessed. You can tell he's coming off his adrenaline high. And a Metropolitan Police Officer, Stephen Sagamont, who was at the police line the entire time, thanked him twice on camera for his help that day, and then put his arm around him as the crowd surged up and said, "I got you, man, all right? Just chill out, I got you." And then a woman had come up behind him after the crowd had dispersed and took him to a police tent. So 7 minutes of his life, everything that I just regurgitated is all on body camera footage, not just cell phone footage, not just CCTV camera footage of outside of the tunnel, but their own police body camera footage. They came for him in August of 2021, and he waited 26 months behind bars, was denied bond, so had to wait in Washington, D.C. for trial, stuck it out for a jury trial because he was the only one on his case that went all the way to trial so he could get somewhat justice for Roseanne, because a lot of American citizens don't know that 4 individuals died that day, not just Ashley Babbitt. And so he wanted to get it on the record, and then he waited another 4 months to be sentenced. And so that process just showed that, one, our justice system is broken from start to finish, because there was no reason for him to be denied bond. The judge called him a terrorist on record in a bond hearing and said that he didn't need to see the video or the audio footage because he knew that that Colton was a bad man. And I truly believe, I personally will never stop being proud of his actions that day. And I believe it didn't matter if it happened in Washington, D.C. on January 6th on the Capitol steps, or it happened in Nashville in a Chick-fil-A parking lot. He would have done the exact same thing because he did what he was trained to do. And unfortunately, because he took those actions and helped the Metropolitan Police officers and tried to save Roseanne Boyland, the judge sentenced him to 70 months. And so he's currently serving out his sentence in federal prison.
Yeah, I'm looking for the judge's name, and I believe it was Freeman. And I could not believe that he made several times on record calling him a terrorist. He had him convicted before there was even a verdict. And he didn't even allow the audio in the video to be played. Because if you just play the video, you don't understand what's going on until you hear the audio, and then it completely exonerates him. And he's got 70 years behind bars. And I believe it's 7 counts of felony he has on him. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, 70 months. He has 6 felonies and 1 misdemeanor.
And here he is, a law officer. I'm sorry. I've stood the line in riots. And when I saw what the Capitol Police had out there, and I said, wait a minute, where is their base? Normally there's a bus or something that is the headquarters that all the bosses are in, and they have the radios that you can, control people. I didn't see that. I didn't see the stanchions placed ahead of time. I didn't see any of the things that I would have seen, because I'm from New York. I was a New York City cop. So I was screaming when I was watching on TV. I'm screaming at it. Where's the barriers? Where's the setup? Where is everything? Why isn't the National Guard called in to back up? And I would get you really angry, but I have some audio here, and I don't know if you want to really hear it, where Nancy Pelosi admits that they made a huge mistake by not making sure they reinforced the Capitol Police, by not having the National Guard there. There's 2 separate audios I have of her saying they made a big mistake.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that was a mistake. I think they wanted Trump to look bad that day.
And I wish we had a full hour with you or more, because there's so much to delve into. Because here you are, you're comfortably at home, you've got a great husband, a wonderful life going on, and all of a sudden there's an FBI raid. You have no idea. And all of a sudden you were thrust into something. You had no idea where they took them. And all of a sudden your life was completely turned around. Now, this is now not just you, but now over 1,500 people, their families and loved ones have gone through this.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just an atrocity to know that this is happening to American citizens on American soil in our own nation's capital. Bad things happened on January 6th. A lot of these individuals, I even believe many of the police officers that day were set up by their own, because they wanted it to be a bloodbath. You're absolutely right. They wanted it to be worse than what it was. And some individuals took the bait for it. But I believe a lot of these individuals, and this is the thing, you're not allowed to claim self-defense, and you're not allowed to claim defense of a third party for January 6 cases in Washington, D.C. Now, if they had moved these cases out, gotten a change of venue granted, and moved to anywhere else in America, I believe you would have seen individuals been acquitted. I believe you would have seen true accountability by these judges and by holding these prosecutors accountable, because what they are allowed to get away with is unheard of. It's unprecedented, but they get away with it because the judges, the prosecutors are in cahoots, And they are all, everybody who was in the vicinity of Washington, D.C. on January 6th are named victims in these cases, except for the defendants themselves. But those are the people that are deciding your fate because they're sitting on the jury, they're the judges and the prosecutors. Never have you heard of that. If somebody went and robbed a bank and held hostages, those hostages would never sit on a jury because they are named victims in the case. Yet this is what's happening in Washington, D.C., and it's not covered by mainstream media. A lot of them is not even covered by independent journalists because they don't have the time to go in and move themselves to Washington, D.C. to sit in all these trials, to sit in all these status hearings, to hear what the prosecution is saying, what they are allowed to get away with. They are lying in front of the jury, and the judges don't do anything about it. But there's a 99.6 conviction rate in Washington, D.C. for January 6 cases. And that is why they won't grant a change of venue for any January 6 case, because they know it's a slam dunk.
You know, it's what's worse is the way that the system has treated them. And I've heard horror stories. Now, at the time this article was printed, I got it off your website. He had been moved 11 different times. And you have no way. Sometimes you don't even know if he's alive or dead, where he is, if he's in DC or if he's in New York or wherever they put him. And where is he now? Do you know?
Yes, he is in Minnesota. He's in a federal prison serving out his time there. But you're absolutely right. He was moved 11 times to 12 different facilities. There were days where I didn't know where he was. I didn't know if he was alive. I didn't know if he was safe. Even his attorneys don't know. And that is what the Federal Bureau of Prisons, the U.S. Marshals, they are allowed to get away with. They take them in the middle of the night and move them, God knows where. He's been moved all over the country, and you don't know until they allow them their one phone call. They could be sitting in facilities for days on end with no one knowing where they are at.
Are you able to visit him? I'm sorry, Curtis. You able to still visit him? Can you do that?
Now I can, yes. It was 597 days from the time that they apprehended him to the time that I was able to see him for the first time.
Wow, almost 2 years.
Sarah, you say your husband was one of them. Was he law enforcement in that area from out of state? And number two, were you ever given the option of appeal?
Yes. So he was a law enforcement officer in Tennessee. We're from Nashville. And so he was off duty that day. And that's how he was able to go. But yes, we are in the appeals process because he did go to a trial. He's able to appeal those. But unfortunately, he waited 31 months for the criminal side in the district court. So it's going to be, our defense attorney told us, regardless of the appeal or not, he's going to finish serving out his time. It's really at this point just to clear his name of those charges.
And did they give him time served from the time he was arrested?
Yes, he will get out sometime in 2026.
Wow. Now, you yourself, you got thrown into a whole world that you had no idea how to deal with. But I completely admire and just respect you for the strength you've had, because you had help. You had God with you.
Yeah. Honestly, that's the only reason I'm able to get up every morning and fight this fight, because there's good days, there's bad days, but just to be able to know that it's not just us. That's how we knew that this was much bigger than us, is that we have to fight for our rights as Americans, because they are being obliterated right in front of us. And it's not just January 6 defendants that this is happening to. There's test subjects everywhere. You have the individuals that pray at abortion clinics. You have individuals that question not only the election, but what's currently going on in the administration. You have people that wave flags outside of a Biden-Harris bus in Texas in 2020 that were being prosecuted by the Department of Justice. It's anybody that questions what the current regime is currently doing, then they will come after you and they will destroy you. They want to shut you up. They want to finance. I mean, you look at, take January 6th, because that's what I know the most and has the most numbers. They try to destroy you every which way, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially. If they can't do it any of those ways, they're going to come after you physically, because they just want you to shut up. They don't want you to continue questioning what they are doing.
Sarah, do you think there's a possibility that if Trump gets back in office, that he will pardon a lot of those who are put away for the January 6th event.
Yes, I absolutely do. And I think every American has the duty to show up on November 5th and cast their vote. But if we think that we are going to walk to the ballot box and have a fair and free election, then we have learned nothing over the last 4 years. But we have a duty to vote, but we also have a duty to hold individuals accountable. We need to stay there. We need to make sure that they are not harvesting the ballots there and just, having people drop it off. We need to hold our election officials accountable, because that if we don't have fair and free elections in America, we don't have anything.
Well, you see, I still run a Tea Party the last 15 years, but I also work along with the local GOP. So I always tell people, politics start locally. You have to get involved locally. So we've been telling people to go out there and be poll watchers, poll workers, just to help us protect the vote, which is important. But with the early voting, and the Democrats are good at this, the early voting, we said, we got to do the same thing. And I'm telling them, get out there. Don't wait until Election Day, because they're going to pull something on Election Day. We know that. We know that.
Yeah, they absolutely are. And we have a duty as Americans, because our Declaration of Independence, our U.S. Constitution, it's being obliterated right in front of our eyes. We have rights as Americans. And if we continue to sit back on the sidelines and say, well, it's not affecting me yet. Yet is the key word. It absolutely is affecting people. We are in a worse state in our economy than we were in the Great Depression, but we are living on credit cards. People are still out there living their best life. But what's going to happen when you walk to the bank and the bank has then come insolvent, so you can't pull any of the money out that you have? It doesn't matter of the $250,000 that they say that they have covered. None of that matters anymore because the bank's insolvent. What are you going to do when you can't put food on the table for your kids? What are you going to do when they come after our Second Amendment? That's when it's going to get real for people, but that's when it's too late. So we have a chance right now to take our once great nation back, but we have to do it. We, the people, have to do it. We too soon forget. People want to say, oh, well, our vote doesn't matter. Our voice doesn't matter. Sure, when you are one person, you're fighting a major battle. But when we all come together, that's what the Democrats are really good at, is unity. I don't know what goes on behind closed doors with the Democrats, but when they come out, they are a force for one. Republicans need to put their difference aside, and we need to work on the things that we can agree on to get change done. Because if we don't agree on 100% of things, then we can't work together. But that's why we are where we are right now. We, the people, must hold our representatives accountable because we outnumber them. We need to show those that aren't afraid to stand up, like Matt Gaetz, like Troy Nehls, like these individuals that aren't afraid to question. They need to know that we support them. But you're absolutely right. It starts at a local level. We need constitutional sheriffs, because people don't understand that sheriffs have more power in their county than the sitting president of the United States. And they could have said, FBI, you are not welcome to take my constituent out of my county for January 6th defendants, and they were extradited to Washington, D.C. But not one constitutional sheriff stood up and said that. They need to have every road into their county with posts up and say to the federal government, you are not welcome here. But our constitutional sheriffs need to know that we, the constituents, support them in protecting our own local community.
Well, you have a couple of organizations you formed. One is the Real J6, which you try to get out what's going on. And we can spend hours about what these guys have been going through with the infested mattresses they're forced to sleep on, solitary confinement, the torture that they go through, the physical and mental abuse. But you also have Stand in the Gap, which you're trying to change the system as we see it right now. And it's an uphill battle. And I can attest to this because my county council sees me standing there and you hear, oh, and right now I am locking horns with them, and we're setting up to do a bunch of sign waving and everything else. And if that doesn't work, I've already got an attorney set up and said, hey, listen, now you violated the law here, and now we're going to sue you. And you have to take that position. And you're not afraid to do that. And when I hear what happens to people that are related to, or people that have been released, and they may have been released because they had just a misdemeanor, or that are J6s, what happens to you with the public sentiment if you try to rent? And we hear people going, no, I know you're J6, I'm not renting to you. Or they can't get a job. And they are being ostracized outside now. just trying to live their lives, the families and the ones that have served their time and are being released. It's not right. It's just
No,
not right.
you're absolutely right. We wear a scarlet letter because our loved one is a January 6th defendant. So it doesn't just affect the defendant, it affects their loved ones that are out here fighting. And, I lived a very comfortable life when I was in the corporate world, but I just felt a calling because it wasn't just about my husband and I. It was about all of the January 6th defendants and their families and what they were going through because they didn't have a voice. And I felt like the Lord equipped me to pull together my resources because I was seeing what was happening. And it started because I didn't get to see my husband for 597 days. And so when they were finally granted visitation, families couldn't afford it because they had already been their breadwinners had already been locked away for 2 years. And they were trying to do, life goes on the outside. And so they had mortgages to pay, car payments, credit card payments. Their children were growing up and they weren't able to be a part of their life. And so we launched Operation Love Wins, where we fund for these families to be reunited and pay for their visitation. But then it became much more than that, where we talked about the 99.6 conviction rate. And so many defendants did what anybody thinks that they should do and go get the best attorneys. So they sold their homes, sold their assets, cashed out their 401ks, only to be found guilty on every charge. And now they're sitting in prison and can't appeal because they don't have the money for an appellate attorney to take it to the circuit court, the second highest court in the land, or even all the way up to the Supreme Court. And so we fund appellate attorneys to continue to show the injustice of what's being done in these courtrooms. And then it goes beyond that, though, because, in 25 days, we have the most important election, in my opinion, in American history. Regardless if President Trump gets in and does pardon these individuals and does commute their sentences in January, they don't have anything when they walk out of those prison walls. They've lost family. They've lost their jobs. My husband will never be a law enforcement officer again, even if he's pardoned, because of the way the media has smeared him, And so we created the Road Home Project, where not only are we partnering with a bed and breakfast in Texas, where we are going to build tiny homes on their land for these individuals to not only to bring themselves to start the healing process, but to bring their families with them so they can heal as one, but to partner with employers that are willing to hire these individuals to help them build a skill set, to build a business, whatever it might be for them, because life looks different now. And that's where we have to come together as Americans, because sure, what we are currently facing, there's nothing bigger than you walk into the courtroom and hear the United States of America versus, in our case, Ronald Colton McAbee. It gets no bigger than that. But what has happened is the destruction has spread into the families. And so that's where we need to come in and continue to walk this journey with these individuals, because I do believe they were chosen for such a time as this. But that doesn't mean that their mental, physical, spiritual, financial health has been at stake for the last 4 years.
It sounds so wonderful, because I did not know that you had this going on. If you can, send that to me, please. And if anyone does want to contact the show, it's very easy. It's Southern Sense, the name of the show, at hotmail.com. You send that, and then I'll give you the other super secret one. I appreciate that, because we got to get that out there. We've got to make that go viral, because they need healing. And I'm hearing stories about families that their brothers and sisters that once were really close will not talk to them anymore.
Yeah.
Because it really overflows onto the rest of the family. And you have to walk, and they have to walk away in order to protect their family. And we do need someone for counseling for them, for their spiritual and their mental health. And it's great that you're putting them together, so at least they know that they're not alone.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is so important, that they are not alone in this, because they did have the J6ers that were singing the national anthem every morning, but now they've all split up, and they feel so isolated and alone.
Yeah, they do. In Washington, D.C., they still sing the national anthem every night at 9 p.m. Michelle Whithoff, Ashley Babbitt's mom, and Nicole Reffitt, a January 6th defendant wife, are out there on the corner of the D.C. jail every night to do a candlelight and prayer vigil and sing the anthem with them. And that is so important, that it goes back to the saying that they are bent, but they are not broken, and they refuse to break at the hands of the federal government, that they are exposing the injustice of what's happened. And that's where our name comes from, Stand in the Gap. They stood in the gap for us on January 6th. It's time for Americans to stand in the gap for them.
Well, God bless you for all the hard work you do. It is absolutely amazing, the fact that you can be so strong and tough and such a beautiful lady too. I'm past that prime. I'm an old lady.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on and sharing our story. And we absolutely will come back on with updates as these individuals get out and we can help them pull their life back together.
Well, God bless you, Sarah. And people can find you at your website, which is sarahmacabee.us. We'll have to have you back and give you a full hour to get everything out there. Will you do that?
Absolutely.
All right, then I'll contact you and we'll schedule it.
Okay.
God bless and enjoy your weekend. Take care.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Sarah McAbee. .us. Check it out and support her. It is fantastic work. And the horrors and stuff that I have been hearing about on this is amazing. And I wish we had the other guest, Chris Burgard, which he will be joining us again. But folks, that's all we got for today. So for that, we're going to have to say God bless and good night. Right, Curtis?
Yep. Take care. Be safe out there.
All right.
I'm praying for this land I love, America, America, the home of the free. But there are people making plans to change America. They've no respect for her or what matters most to me. That's why I stand for the flag and I kneel at the cross. Mourn for the friends I have loved and lost. And I still believe in God we trust, and the freedom our forefathers granted us. I hope it's not too late to save America. Do you hear our battle cry across America? We've got to rescue her. You know it's up to me and you to see the truth behind their lies. Don't change America. God bless America and the red, white, and blue. Why I stand for the flag and I kneel at the cross. Long for the friends I have loved and lost. And I still believe in God we trust, and the freedom our forefathers granted us. I hope it's not too late to save America. For the friends we have loved and lost, and we still believe in God we trust, in the freedom our forefathers granted us. We know it's not too late to save America. Save America. Let's save America. Together we can save America.